We all know Odin conquered the Nine Realms, but it wasn't until Thor Ragnarok that we really got a clue about what exactly that entailed. And, spoiler alert, it wasn't exactly sunshine and peace treaties the whole way down. In the MCU, Odin's really been a side character in Thor's journey, but that doesn't mean he isn't immensely more powerful than the God of Thunder himself. After all, Odin reigned over the Nine Realms for ages, while Thor couldn't even manage New Asgard without running away to have adventures in outer space. Yes, it is kind of funny that he needs to enter into Odin's sleep, which makes him vulnerable, but he sleeps so deeply because he has a lot of powers to replenish. He's tapped into the Odin Force, and just because Odin likes to throw around his own name like Hank Pym does with the word quantum doesn't mean it's not a force to be reckoned with. Wielding the Odin Force, he was able to take away Thor's powers and quite literally ground him by sending him to Earth. And while Odin usually sticks to emotionally traumatizing his children instead of physically attacking them, the same can't be said for his other enemies. Odin made destroying millions of frost giants and dark elves look easy, and then added insult to injury by adopting a frost giant child and hurting him emotionally. He just can't resist going above and beyond. In addition to the might of the Odin Force, there's also the fact that Odin is incredibly wise and experienced, as well as being a proficient warrior. Some of his most impressive deeds happened prior to the events of the first Thor movie, and those are the ones that really help compare his might to that of his children. In Ragnarok, Thor was able to take on Surtur, but only because his dad had faced him down when the fire demon was at full strength. Not only did Odin defeat and imprison him, but he trounced the guy so thoroughly that he was still trying to shake off his injuries 5,000 years later. Odin protected Asgard from Ragnarok, while Thor burned the place down and then sat around playing video games. Maybe Odin wasn't hard enough on his kids. And then there's his estranged daughter Hela, who we also met for the first time in Thor Ragnarok. Her existence was an unpleasant surprise for Thor and Loki, who learned that their father didn't exactly conquer the Nine Realms with his skills in poetry. While Odin later realized his actions were reprehensible, the fact that he was able to wreak such havoc shows how mighty he is. Odin was also powerful enough to imprison Hela, and considering what we saw her accomplish, that couldn't have been easy. Hela was strong enough to crush Mjolnir, and the only way she could be freed was for Odin to pass on. While Odin overpowered Hela, Thor and Loki were unable to do so without burning their home to the ground. There's no doubt that the MCU version of Odin is much stronger than most fans give him credit for. But I kind of understand why comic book fans feel this way, considering how much more intense he is in the source material. Comic book Odin makes the MCU version look weak in comparison. This is a guy who once headbutted Galactus. Yeah, he had to take a nap afterwards, but he managed to do some serious damage to the World Devourer. Thanks to the Odin Force, he barely has to blink before doing things like sending the human race to an alternate dimension, or straight up steal the soul of someone like Mephisto. Odin can even straight up make humans immortal if he wants to. He just doesn't really want to most of the time. Hey, I didn't say the comic book Odin was any nicer than his MCU counterpart, and like most comic book characters, Odin has perished a handful of times in defense of Asgard. There was the time he stood against Mangog and managed to save the day at the cost of his own life, while Thor stood by without the strength to do what his father could. Now, I'm not trying to hate on Thor and Loki here by any means. Not only are they both powerful in their own ways, but they're two of the most compelling characters out there. They also happen to highlight Odin's few weaknesses. His first is his commitment to Asgard. It's a major source of his power, but having to defend it can put him in a vulnerable position. Then there's the fact that he's very well aware of his own power, which often leads him to underestimate his opponents. That's why he keeps falling for Loki's dang tricks. In a one-on-one battle, Odin would defeat his least favorite son, unless Loki had a Batman amount of prep time to fool his father. He can be kind of obtuse when it comes to his kids. It took him a long time to realize Hela was evil. He thought Thor was capable of ruling Asgard in the first film when he clearly wasn't, and I've got a feeling he still doesn't see where he went wrong with Loki. Other than that, Odin's only real weakness is the fact that he has to enter into Odin's sleep periodically in order to recharge his power. Thor and Loki aren't anywhere near as strong as Odin, but in their defense, he has a lot more experience than they do, and as far as the MCU is concerned, it seems like their journeys are just getting started.